Correct, correct. And like just as you said right now, like there's a lot of things that that we would need in space. So like when the private space industry started, I think maybe I was like 5 or 6 years old at that time. Like there was not like this sort of secondary economy, right? Like there was just most people just used to like think about like private rocket launches or satellite launches, and now we're kind of like I would say witnessing an era where this like giant second economy is taking birth, where we need like these individual components or raw materials or even like software development. And
Yep.
Orbit Fab also kind of seems to be tackling that specific problem. Like what sort of trends have you observed about the private space industry like since it began and like right now in 2023?
It's interesting. The space industry can be defined in a few different ways. Um, the bigger space industry that includes the downstream. So a telecommunications satellite enables a company that's selling internet, right? And so do you
Yeah,
include $100 billion of internet into $5 or $10 billion of direct satellite revenue, or do you just include building the satellite, which is only a few $100 million, right, and launching it? And so
yeah,
there's downstream, how we use the capabilities from GPS to telecommunications to all of the remote sensing and radar and like all of the phenomenal tools that we have. So the downstream is using that, and then the upstream is building and operating. That's one way to look at it, is downstream, upstream. Another way to look at it is in space for space versus the on the ground, right? And
yeah,
so
yeah,
while the downstream markets have been expanding really rapidly, and they're much bigger than the upstream market, right? The upstream market's 10% the size of the downstream market. That's the hardware that actually gets launched into space and the rockets. So if the downstream market right now is 500-600 billion dollars, 50 or 60 billion is building and launching the satellites and operating and that kind of stuff. Much smaller part is products and services created in space to be sold and used in space.
yeah,
And this is very, very small. This is the nascent industry of tow trucks in orbit, right? Of
yeah,
gas stations in orbit. We're creating value by creating services that are used in space. That is completely new. And the growth rate of that is very, very high. Now,
yeah,
if you look at what can be done in space with manufacturing and not just the vantage point, but what you can do with zero gravity, like the fact that you don't have
yeah,
buoyancy, you don't need to store things like with walls. You can do processes and create materials that you can't create on Earth. That is going to revolutionize all manufacturing. And if a step in your process needs zero gravity, you put the whole process in space, otherwise it doesn't work. And so
right,
eventually, so much of manufacturing is going to be moved off Earth
yeah,
and power generation associated with it and everything else. In 50 to 100 years, the economy in space is going to be bigger than the economy on Earth, right? What we're building
right,
is not the Earth economy, right? It will
yeah,
help the Earth economy. A lot of the goods and services will be sold into the Earth economy, but what we're creating is the space economy. In
right.
space for space. That is going through incredible growth right now, but it's very small.
Mhm. Yeah, correct, correct. Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. Like I didn't even think about it that way. Yeah,
It has to be.
and yeah,
If you want to create permanent jobs in space, what goods and
yeah,
services are they creating, right?
yeah,
And if
yeah,
there's an export job where
yeah,
you're creating, say you're helping run and maintain the factory, which then produces things that are exported to Earth, or you're helping with the tourism, right? Roll out the red carpet, cook the food, what have you, or with entertainment content. Maybe you're filming the movie or running the lights and what have you for shooting a movie in space. Those are export jobs, right? The dollars come from selling things to the
yeah,
population on Earth. Once you have an export job, it supports 10 to 100 internal economy jobs because that
yeah,
person needs food and needs a place to live and needs their air to be clean and
yeah,
everything else. And
yeah,
they want to have a day off and not go stir crazy. So they're going to want to have some kind of entertainment. And all of the people supplying those also want to have those things, right? And so for every export job we have in space, we're going to have 10 to 100 internal economy jobs. And at the moment, there are 0 export jobs in space. Right? How do we
Okay.
create permanent jobs in space? That's been my obsession for 25 years.